Now, the World Bank's Doing Business Report 2014 recently ranked South Africa at number 106 out of 189 countries. According to Henny Heymans, MD of DHL Express South Africa, these negative rankings are as a result of stringent trade barriers such as regulations and import costs, as well as the lack of infrastructure present in the region. Well, he joins us now in studio. And Henny, taking a look at these stringent trade barriers, you touch on infrastructure as well as regulatory impacts. Highlight them further for us. So how do they exactly impact on your business?
I think firstly, the infrastructure is probably the one that's got the biggest impact on us. And in particular, there are probably three elements that I would highlight. Firstly is the lack of road infrastructure. I think that is hindering us in South Africa, and it's also hindering us not just from an import perspective, but also exporting. Then we've got the lack of a rail service in this country, getting goods from the harbours, Durban in particular, inland. And then finally, I think we sit with the complexity around the customs and the regulations around customs, and just the tedious processes of getting goods through customs in a timely and expedient manner.
Has that always been the case, though, or have there been recent changes to the regulations?
No, I think there's always been a problem, but customs, they've got a role to play, and I think it's about what role they play. And my view is certainly that they don't have to play the role of a gatekeeper, but rather play the role of an economic enabler. And I think if we can get that paradigm shift going, then I think it'll bode well for South Africa and its economic growth going forward.
In this release, you also quote the number of days that it takes to export products out of South Africa, and that's about 16 days. The average time to import takes about 21 days. To put this in context, or rather relevance, how do we compare to other emerging markets in the country? In the globe, excuse me.
It depends. If you look at the BRICS countries, we unfortunately bottom of the list. If you look at more advanced economies, first world economies like Europe, then clearly we don't even compete. If you look at the cost that is associated with that, there are probably two main elements to that. Firstly, it's the capital that you've got tied up in the goods that you're importing or exporting, and that of course has got a cost connected to that. And then secondly, it's just the cost of the logistics per se. We're up to 7 times more expensive than Europe. So it makes us, from the starting point, uncompetitive.
And already we are developing economy, so already we're on the back foot, and that just takes us so much further. What kind of impact does this have on a company like yours, DHL, which deals with deliveries of packages from a logistics perspective?
I think probably the biggest impact on us is around the customs environment. And for us, the biggest challenge is that we need to find a way to speed that up and get that sense of urgency across that environment in South Africa, whether it's for imports or whether it's for exports. Because it helps you very little getting it into the country at record time, and then you lose 2 weeks through a customs process, and the same for exports. So I think if we can simplify the processes and the procedures, then I think we stand we stand to gain a lot.
So we know what the problems are. How do we fix them?
I think it's like eating an elephant. You've got to try and do it spoon by spoon. And I think firstly it needs to start with a paradigm shift. We need to absolutely understand what it'll take to keep South Africa the economic powerhouse in Africa. And there are a number of countries that are competing with us. We talk about Kenya, we talk about Nigeria, even Angola is wanting to wrestle that #1 spot away from us. So it starts with that paradigm shift. We need to understand what it'll take from a service perspective. We need to understand what it'll take from a regulatory perspective, and then we have to start implementing those. Talk is cheap, money buys the whiskey, I'm afraid.
So true, but keeping more on the money front, how do companies like yours end up spending more money or incurring more costs with regard to the increase in the stringent regulations that are present here?
You certainly do, because it has an impact on your operating hours, and in order to proceed and get goods cleared quicker, you end up running 24/7 operations. You tend flying goods more than what you transported via road, and as we all know, air transport is a lot more expensive than by road or by rail. So certainly those two elements alone adds to the cost, unfortunately.
And with government making mention of the planned infrastructure developments in the country, even though that still has to pick up yet, are you positive with regard to the outlook?
I certainly am. I think there's still a lot of things that's going our way in South Africa. The key for us is to keep that momentum, and the key for us is to now actually put our money where our mouth is. And we need to see that improvement both in the customs environment, and we have to see it from an infrastructural perspective.
And the role that private sector plays in this?
I think private sector plays an important role. I think it is our role to take hands with government and walk this journey with government rather than just to continuously throw stones at them. I think we have the expertise, we've got the knowledge and we've got the know-how. You know, DHL Express is a worldwide company. We've got expertise and best demonstrated practices from around the world that we would gladly share with government.
Just also on the release, you mentioned that this increase in the trade regulations has also hindered potential investment coming into the country. Just how much might maybe have lost over the last couple of years?
I think it's difficult to quantify, but if you look at a couple of key things that are scaring investors away at the moment, we look at the uncertainty in our labour market, we look at the high logistical costs to get goods in and out of the country, and we also look at the whole issue around electricity and availability of electricity. If you look at the report, South Africa is ranked 150th, 50th in the world to get electricity. I mean, that just doesn't bode well for us at all.
Not at all, but hopefully we'll see a positive outlook at the end of the day.